If you deal with self-criticism and you want to know what you can do about it, well, listen up. In this video, I'm speaking with Naimie, a holistic psychotherapist, about self-criticism, how it shows up in our lives, where it comes from, and what you can do about it. I'm Dr. Karthik Ramanan. On this channel, I help ambitious individuals end self-criticism with tools and strategies to create optimal, everyday mental health. If you're new here and you know that you need to get out of your own way to execute on your passions, well, this channel is for you. So hit that subscribe button right now. Naimie graduated magna cum laude from University of California, San Diego with a BA in sociology and a minor in psychology. She followed that up with a master's in social welfare from the University of California, Berkeley. She received her advanced hypnotherapy training certification from the Hypnotherapy Training Institute, as well as her brain health coach certification from the Amen University. She's been in practice for 28 years, and she currently lives and practices in San Clemente, California for the last 19 years. I'm excited to dive into this topic with you, Mary.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Dr. K. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to ask you, you've got a lot of experience, and what are some of the common themes that you've seen in patients in terms of their origins of where this self-criticism comes from?
The origins go through the lifespan. So we have to look at it through the lifespan, and pretty much birth through about the age of 7, everything's getting downloaded like a computer from the family of origin, from your household. So I know it's very stereotypical to blame the parents, but there are some parts of psychology. It's not blaming them, but a household has a culture and they have a language. They have words that they use and messages that they put in their children's heads. So birth to 7, it's pretty much our family and our culture. 7 into your teens, you start to expose to your greater community, and you have other adults involved in your life. You have coaches and you have teachers, you have peers, you have media. And going into adolescence, then it's friends and the bigger community and social media and print media, and it grows and grows. So it's your family of origin, and then start layering on top of that as you move up through your age groups. And then you get, bigger to society and culture and what messages they're downloading to you that entire time.
Right. And generally, what happens is that, you're talking about the family culture in the early days of one's life. And that foundation tends to be built upon with all those other layers as time goes on. So it's one of those things that perhaps if the outside world after that age of 7 might exist in such a way that that might neutralize, let's say, self-criticism, then that would be a good thing. But unfortunately, we're in this world of, again, bullying for kids in school, social media, et cetera, that even well into adulthood, if you have that seed of self-criticism built up into, age 7, it can really grow into this giant tree after that.
Absolutely. And more than growing, we seek it out. So what's familiar to us from our
Right.
family of origin, people will, you think it would be the opposite, that they would run the other way if something was negative in their life. But if you've had a overly critical parent, let's say, this child may grow into a teen and their first romantic relationship is with someone who's overly critical.
Mm.
And then they choose a coach who's overly critical. And they go and they seek out, so it reconfirms and reconfirms and reconfirms those self-criticisms and those negative thoughts someone has about themselves.
Yeah, because really we this holds true in other circumstances too, not just with self-criticism, but we're drawn to situations and circumstances, like you said, seeking out elements in the world around us that confirm the beliefs that we already have about ourselves.
Absolutely. We as human beings like what is familiar. And
Right.
even if what's familiar is unhealthy or it's not suiting us, we still have this unconscious drive to what's familiar. So taking it out of the unconscious and becoming conscious about it is the first step towards moving forward. Or you'll just keep repeating and repeating and repeating the same patterns and going, yeah, look, I'm unworthy, or I'm not smart, or I'm not gifted, or I'm not special. Whatever that belief is, you'll just keep confirming it through interactions with people and situations and people that you choose to put in your life.
Yeah. And I think one of the places that it shows up that I've noticed, certainly among patients, friends, everybody, is especially when it comes to relationships,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Where you've got, it's like, well, how come I always find these terrible guys? Well, it's a delicate situation because it's not your fault, but at the same time, how we see the world is what we attract, and we seek them out, like you said. So it's awareness of what the origin is so critical, and really that's why this channel exists, is to illuminate that origin. And how do you move forward from there?
Yeah. How do you move forward from there? Like I said, step one is awareness. So when someone becomes aware of a pattern in their life, or they make that decision, like, I'm sick of having this attitude or this belief in myself, that's step one. They
Right.
they might not know where to turn or how to fix that, but the awareness of it is step one. I
Yeah,
like
I
to
think.
tell clients have the repetitive relationship patterns. For instance, like, I can stick you in a room with 100 people with numbers on them and give you 20 minutes and say, you got to come out with 5 numbers of people that you're attracted to. And I guarantee you, the 5 numbers you come out with, that person's probably going to have that issue that you've been trying to get away from. Whether
Right.
that's someone who's verbally abusive or has a substance abuse problem, you're going to find them quickly because it's like a magnet.
Right.
So being able to identify it at first is super, super important.
Right, exactly. How does self-criticism, like, affect your patients on a day-to-day level, and also in their long-term goals?
Well, we mentioned relationships. It
Right.
definitely affects people in relationships. It affects people with education, their belief in their abilities academically, their belief in what they think they're smart enough to study in school, their belief in their career choices, especially those careers that, let's say, are less universally agreed upon by society as being sure bets. So people
Right.
going into the arts, people going into their own businesses, where you'll get a lot of naysayers. Just get a degree and become employed by somebody. So it affects people in all of those ways: their careers, their relationships, and their own personal health. When we're dealing with, like, weight loss and
Mhm.
someone's beliefs in, can I make changes in this area of my life, or this is just how I am, or it's just my genetics. That's how I
Yeah,
see it impact people day to day.
people don't realize how much that impacts them, and, I see it a lot with, autoimmune diseases as well. I mean, think about it. Your body is attacking itself.
Yeah.
Why would that happen? I mean, there's so many factors that go into it, but at the same time, it is a common thread that, this self-judgment, self-criticism, it wreaks havoc, and it really doesn't have to. And that's the exciting part about the kind of work that you do, that I do, that we can not only just educate and illuminate that this is something that you can address, but that it is something that you can really reverse and live a totally different life. I can say for a fact that, my life is a living example of that,
Yeah.
and why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah, you're definitely living proof that you can change that mindset and get past it and make changes in your life. That would be the second part. The first part's identifying it, and the second part is figuring out, okay, based on that particular mindset, there's different mindsets that we're talking today about self-criticism, but based on that mindset, what are the tools, what are the techniques to get through it? And who should
Yes.
I surround myself with to get through that?
So what are some of your favorite tools and techniques for
Ah.
addressing?
Favorite tools and techniques. I am a well, my original work was in cognitive behavioral therapy. That was the root. That's what I came out of grad school doing, and that's still the base of my practice. So cognitive therapy is about helping people, one, identify their thoughts. So finding that little voice in your head and getting it out, and realizing sometimes how ridiculous that sounds, or how disabling those thoughts are. So, cognitive therapy gives you the tools to identify those thoughts. It gives you activities to reframe them, and then how to learn how to say those thoughts in a healthier way. So, cognitive therapy for one. Hypnotherapy is one of my favorite tools, of course, because it's what I do.
Right.
And I love hypnotherapy because when you're working with someone in hypnotherapy, you're getting down into the subconscious level. You're getting down past their awake awareness state, and you're getting down where memories and habits are stored. And you can really do some amazing work with people when they're in that brainwave state that they're in when they're in hypnotherapy. Guided meditation, which is a little different from hypnotherapy. It's giving people scripts that they can play and listen to over and over that are reconfirming and changing the way that they're thinking. And then education. I think a lot of people don't think of education as a therapy tool, but giving people education and explaining to them where this comes from, showing people that this isn't you, it's your brain.
Mhm.
You've learned a habit, just like we have habits in our speech or habits in our walking. You learn habits in your thinking, and just educating someone that it's not you, it's a thinking habit you've developed, and we can change that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's critical. And how, to get to that point where somebody wants to change, it's interesting. I think there's a stigma around mental health for some people in terms of, well, I don't want to be seen as somebody that needs, let's say, therapy or needs to work with a holistic doctor or whatever the case may be. But I think from the self-critical person standpoint, at
Mhm.
least this is the world I came from in my
Yeah,
head, was
your
I'm
standpoint.
not worth going to such a person.
Oh,
It's not worth I'm not worth spending that kind of time and money and effort to do that, because why? It's me.
oh.
And how do you address that kind of mentality with some of your patients that are going through that?
So are you talking about the mentality that I'm not worth investing in, or is
Correct.
it a mentality of, let's say, well, I'm an amateur athlete and you're asking me to do this kind of professional training that I'm just not capable of doing. So is it feeling like I'm not worthy of spending this time and money on
Yeah,
myself to
feeling
get
not
better?
worthy.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have to say the time and era we live in, and I'm in Southern California, therapy has become much more commonplace and much more mainstream. So that's the good news.
That's
I
very good news.
Yeah, people are talking more about therapy. Confidentiality, when I have clients, I tell them if I see you in public, I'll ignore you, I'll walk right by you. It's not because I'm ignoring you, it's for your privacy and your confidentiality, but you're welcome to say something to me. And I'll see clients out in town or somewhere, and they'll wave me down and want to introduce me to their family and friends. So I think the stigma has really decreased in this area. I can't speak across the country and certainly not across the world, but
Right.
where I live, it's become very less stigmatized. So the stigma part of going to therapy is much better. From the part about your self worth, someone has to come to that on their own terms. They have to decide, I'm worth it, and I have potential, and I'm going to take this time and take these resources and I'm going to put it into me, and not into other people, not into these other areas of my life. I'm going to put this into me. And that's, someone just has to come to that. Usually they hit some kind of bottom and they come to it.
Yeah.
Maybe they're listening to this broadcast and they come to it, but
Yeah.
everyone comes to that at different times. Like you came to it at some point in
Oh yeah,
your life.
absolutely. And that's why I very much talk about the dark side
Mhm.
of life in just a very open standpoint, because the thing is, there are times that I certainly remember to hear positive, uplifting, inspiring messages was like, come on. That level of cynicism is just at the
Mhm.
height, and you just don't want to hear it. And I just always let people know, I get that, because I've been to that stage in various portions of my various times of my life. But like you said, when you hit that bottom, there's a certain point where it hurts enough that you realize, excuse me, it hurts enough that you realize I've got to do something about this. Or there's a reason, there's maybe a person that you want to do this for, because you realize that they deserve better of you, and that sort of thing, that
Yeah.
makes you recognize that, hey, I need to go outside of my comfort zone to do something about this. But then once you start, just after that first visit, it can
Mhm.
really just create that momentum that now it's not so hard to do this anymore.
Right. It's the wizard behind the curtain. It's not so scary. It's not so difficult when people take that first step and they connect with a professional and they have that first session. Just like anything in life, the buildup for it was way more stressful than the
Yeah.
doing it. It
Yeah,
was way more
absolutely.
stressful. And, people have these thoughts in their minds because, again, it's reconfirming constantly that little thought in your mind, huge thought in your mind of self-worth or whatever the negative thought is you're chasing has been inside there, and it sickly wants to stay there. So, like you were saying, if you see this positive quote for the day and you're like, yeah, whatever, it's that piece of your brain going, no, don't listen to that. If you listen to that, you're going to lose me. And I've been here since age 7. I want to
Yeah.
hang around longer.
Yeah, it becomes part of your identity. So to separate yourself from that is, it's evolutionarily that wouldn't make sense, right?
Correct.
To just be very willing to separate yourself from who you believe you are, the groups that you associate yourself with. That's not a survival mechanism, but in today's world, that's something that we have to be willing to do when things are not going the way that we want them to.
Yeah. Sometimes it requires people changing their friendship groups, changing where they live geographically, because they're so caught up in a certain belief or a certain perspective. This is really true for teenagers. It's hard for them to be in a certain group freshman and sophomore year, and now they're wanting to make improvements. They're wanting to make changes. They're wanting to get on a good path. They'll frequently ask to change high schools for a fresh start
Right.
because they're so pigeonholed with that group that they've been hanging out with. It's so difficult for them to not be around that group anymore or make changes. As adults, it's a little easier. You can tell adults, well, stop hanging out with that neighbor who drinks so much. It's not healthy for you. Okay. You can't tell a teenager stop hanging out with their best friend.
Yeah,
So,
it's a whole lot harder to do that.
yeah, it's extremely hard. So geographical changes can sometimes make that hit that reset button. Everybody gets a fresh start, or you got seniors going off to college. I'll tell them when you start college, it's a fresh start. Nobody knows who you were in high school. Nobody knows what you did in high school, changed it, but you're brand new. You can be the funny person. You can be the academic person. You can be whoever you want to be because you've severed what everyone knew of you in high school and you get a redo.
Yeah. I mean, even as an adult, that's an exciting possibility.
Mhm.
Actually, I remember the most telling time of that. So I was 29, about to turn 30, leaving my world in New York and my old
Mhm.
career, flying out to Arizona, and I had shipped all my boxes and all that stuff. And I was on the plane, just looking out the window, going, "Hmm." That hit that moment where you realize, hey, nobody knows me here. My
Nobody
sister was out here, and that was pretty much it. So I said, well, this is a chance for me to erase all of who I thought I was and what I was living into, the world that I had constructed around me. Is a chance to start fresh. And that geographic change, that social change of being in a new group, I
Mhm.
said, okay, what does Dr. K of the future look like? How does he act? How does he think? How does he behave? Who does he hang out with? What are the activities that he engages in? What kind of leader is he? How does he communicate? And I just went through and I wrote down, I was on the plane, I had nothing else to do. I wrote down all of these characteristics of that ideal version of myself. And coming out here, that fresh start, it was much easier to just live into that vision. I started doing those things that I had written down, and soon enough I started thinking and behaving and believing myself to be a different person in many ways. And yeah, having that fresh scenery makes a huge difference.
That's a fabulous example. Our watchers are gonna think I led you into that, and it didn't. It came up organically. That was a fabulous example of exactly what I'm talking about. And if
Well,
you're trying to make those changes and you're still not everyone has to move geographically,
right.
but it does help a lot if you're in a time in life where that makes sense and you're able to do it without disrupting too much. But if you can't do it, just you're gonna get some pushback from people. Like, "Oh, I thought you were this, now you're that." "I thought you were atheist and now you're attending church." Or, "I thought" people have a
Yeah.
hard time watching someone, I call it pivot, watching someone pivot and take a different direction in life. And in our healthiest lives, they should be full of pivots.
Yeah, it's
Who do
true.
we know when we're 20? We shouldn't know who we are and be set on a path at the age of 20. I'm nowhere near the person I was at 20.
Yeah.
So
Well,
pivots are healthy. They can be unhealthy if people do it wrong, but
yeah. Well, I mean, intentional pivots that are made because you're going after something rather than running away from something. Those are healthy pivots. And but on the same note, you don't actually have to be in a situation where you are changing your scenery in order to pivot. My most recent pivot last year was a moment when I knew, based on the way that I was really getting back into that self criticism and really getting back into, um, not seeing my self-worth and not being able to act on it, not being able to be who I knew I was around other people with the same confidence. And I realized that, hey, in 6 months, I'm going to be getting married, and I don't want to go into this marriage with, not being the best version of myself that I could possibly be at that time. And that was what told me, hey, I've got to go reach out for help. It doesn't matter that I'm a doctor.
Mhm.
Actually, a doctor that treats himself as a fool for a patient.
Yes.
We cannot help ourselves. We're not equipped for that. We need to be able to go out and get help. And that was a situation where I was still around the same people, but you're right. Just, I noticed a little bit of different behavior. It was all, in my case, fortunately, it was all in a good way. But at the same time, yeah, you are acutely aware. We're all aware of how our social scenarios change around us. And I think that's part of, what makes us as a human community. We're just hyper aware of those things, but you can make them good pivots. And what I found is that during my healthiest pivots,
Yeah.
I've, brought people along for the ride. And I'm sure that's not an uncommon thing. There's people that want to make positive changes. And when they see that happen in somebody that they respect and admire, close to them, they love them, they want that for themselves too.
Absolutely, and sometimes they're scared and they also feel alone. I see this a lot in the recovery community.
Hmm.
You have a group of people that have all been drinking together, or teenagers that party together, and this one's trying to get sober, and all of my friends drink. I said, "You know what? You stay sober 6 months from now, at least one is gonna come join you.
Yeah.
There's at least one who's having questions about their own substance use, and you know what? When they hit their bottom, they're gonna look out and go, 'Who do I know?' And you're the one that they know." So when we pivot, we oftentimes, "Come on, follow me." And we're off somewhere and looking around going, "Okay, nobody followed me." But but you look 6 months later, you look a year later, people will reach out to you.
Yeah.
Because people want to make changes, whether they're in their career or their health, but they're afraid. They're afraid too. So they look at someone and go, "Wow, she did it or he did it. I'm gonna get on path with them." The one thing I wanted to comment when you said you slipped back a little, people have lapses because, again, that ingraining, that 0 to 7 ingraining, and that comes on top of it, is so tight. It's still kind of there, and you have to give respect to the fact that it's always kind of there. So I say sometimes people pivot, but they do a little U-turn and they
Yeah.
come back and go, "Uh-oh, I've kind of got 1 foot back here again." So it's constantly being aware that it's there. It's something that you have to tend to, whether it's through occasional counseling or it's through journaling, accountability partner, but you always have to be aware that it's there. It could rear its head at any time,
Yeah.
but it's noticing it early on before it drags you down a path.
Yeah,
It sounds like
absolutely.
you did.
And
You
like
know,
in that case, I went to my therapist now, and we did EMDR, completely changed my mind, changed my life. But I don't stop going to her.
right.
I've been done for several months.
Mhm.
I go less frequently. I might in the last meeting I didn't really have anything to work on necessarily, but I felt just by being there,
Mhm.
it made me reconnect with this current path that I'm on.
Yeah.
It's that intentionality, so that, yeah, if a situation comes up where maybe that 6-year-old in me is triggered, that I now have more tools and I'm constantly aware and honoring the path that I'm on. And that's why I think it's so important to work with somebody. It actually ties into a topic that I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
There's countless excellent self-help books out there. We've read them ourselves too.
Mhm.
But when is it important to notice that self-help isn't solving the problem and solving the underlying issue, and that it's time to see a professional?
Well, the key there was books, plural.
Okay.
So when it's become books, plural, when the books are on the shelf collecting dust, when the books have been partially read and not finished, when the workbooks that are meant as workbooks have never had a paper or a pencil or a pen put to them. Self-help books are great. They're great for people to feather through and start to get an idea on their own. What's my area? Where are my issues? But what I found is a lot of people don't really work self-help books, right? And everyone's unique and different. So I think they're great. I oftentimes recommend self-help books as homework in therapy. But if someone's been reading the same self-help books, I'll, get a client who's like, I've read every self-help book on codependency. And if it's still an issue and you've read all the books, you need professional guidance. You need to hire somebody to help you through the process, just like you would with anything. We can learn things on YouTube, right? We can learn skills by mimicking others for, tennis and golf. But at some point, if you really want to get good at it, you got to take lessons that are designed for you and that really look at your unique flaws and your unique fixes.
Yeah, I like how you said it is really kind of like anything else in life. Yes, I could learn how to change the oil in my own car,
Yes, you could.
but I would rather just take the car to somebody who does that for a living and can do it that fast.
Mhm.
And, I support them. And then in some other way, somebody else comes to me for help and they support me while I help them. It's just, I think that's why we specialize. I think that's why we specialize as a species. Like, why do we get good at certain things? I believe it's so that we can be of service to other people. And to kind of tie it back to what we were talking about before, when we pivot and we go off on a direction, we, sort of leave the other group behind. What I often see with patients or my clients is when they get the confidence to make that change themselves, um, the best part for them is after that 6 months or a year, when people start coming to them, it gives them a sense of purpose. And
Mhm.
the reality is, like, we're all walking around in this world needing purpose. We need our lives to mean something, because a lot of us who have been working 9 to 5s for, where we're not really sure of why we're doing it, but we're just doing the daily grind, that because I've been there, I know that all too well. And just that feeling of absence of purpose, this your struggle and you deciding right now that enough is enough and that you're going to pivot and you're going to change and you're going to improve your life, that can in the process give you the meaning that you've been craving all along. And
Absolutely.
there's so much upside to getting the help and addressing self-criticism and really becoming the person that you were designed to be.
Yeah, we all start as students of fill in the blank, right? A topic. And you really feel like you've evolved when you become the teacher of that topic. And not just teacher like classroom teacher, but the leader. It's when the father now is coaching the little league team who played baseball as a kid. When we give back, it kind of completes that circle. And when you're doing it in an area that you're really passionate about, it it's the best thing to be able to do what you love, either for a living or for a hobby, and to give a gift to other people who are 200 steps behind you on that same path. You can help them with the things that worked for you, help them to bypass the things that didn't work. So I think it's part of our duty as human beings on this planet to give down to the next group, whether that's the next generation or just people our same age that are a few steps behind us on a certain topic.
Yeah, absolutely true. Now, for the people that do, come to see you on a regular basis, are there any tips and strategies that you give them for things that they can do on their own on a daily basis to, improve their quality of life and their mental health?
Absolutely. Well, I do recommend self-help books. I have specific ones depending on what is going on in their life. I give cognitive therapy homework. I record meditation. Uh, I record meditation, so if they're doing one in my session, they can bring their phone and I'll record it while I'm doing it. So when they leave, they have a recording of it as well, so they can listen to it on their own at home. And then I give lots of other paper pencil assignments, journaling, um, people who are trying to get started or stay on track of something, checklists, accountability, food logs. They're always doing something. You don't just come and spend the hour of the week and I throw magic dust on you and off you go and you're better. You actually have to do things in between. I say it's like, okay, if you took guitar lessons and between lessons, you never picked up your guitar. So they have to practice in between. And I have a whole array of things that I give to clients to do in between sessions, depending on the client and depending on the issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So, why don't you tell our audience here a little bit about what you do and what's your passion at this stage in your career?
At this stage in my career, my passion is finding more time to travel and be with my husband and play more golf. That's my passion. So my career passion has always been in the depression and anxiety field. That's kind of the crux of the clients I see. And I've narrowed it down even more. And right now I work a lot with high achieving teens. So these are teens, and teens, college students are still teens. These are teens that are in high school or middle school, even on that college path, and not just college eligible, the college attractive path. These are the kids taking AP classes, IB classes. They're in sports, they're in theater, they're in band, they're volunteering, they're checking all the boxes they need to check to get that crazy 4.7 GPA and close to perfect SAT score to get into the college of their dreams. And they're stressed to the hilt. So these young people have so much more that they have to do. I look back, I was a straight A student in high school and it was a piece of cake. It was nothing like it is today. So these kids who are already dealing with adolescence, hormones, they've only been on this planet 14, 15, 16 years, are given adult level schedules and stress. They're not getting sleep. They've got hours of homework. So I'm seeing these kids with extreme stress and coming in with anxiety, panic attacks. The only teenagers I saw in therapy early in my career were teenagers who were off track, teenagers that were not doing well in school, who were oppositional, running away, using drugs and alcohol. And the great majority of the teenagers I see now are good kids that are just trying to get to college
Right.
and they're stressed. So that's really become my super area of focus in the last year or so, is giving these kids the tools, because I looked around and the parents pay for SAT prep courses and they pay for science camp and they pay for all these things, but they're not, they pay for private lessons in golf and soccer, but they're not giving them stress management tools
Mm.
and what they need to do to survive. They're not getting a survival kit of how to get through those 4 years. And then they carry those bad habits into college. And then they get out and carry those bad habits into their first years of work. So this is my passion now, is giving these kids stress management tools and I would ideally like to get them in 8th grade to get them ready before they even step foot on the high school campus.
Yeah, that would be outstanding because
Mhm.
really, I mean, I just remember how it was for me in the late 90s. I can only imagine what it is right now, the competitive nature to get into some of these, top level universities and, you know, g- talk about self criticism. The ones that were in that mindset or that foundation of being prone to be self-critical, um, put them in that adult level stress ball like you mentioned, and this adult level schedules. And I can only imagine without the help of somebody like you what that can turn into, not just for them right now, but where are they going to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now and beyond. So I think it's really important work that you're doing. And, one of the reasons I was so um, eager to get you on and really talk to you about this.
Yeah, it's an important area, and I hope it continues to expand and grow. In my idealized world, they would have all ninth graders that are in these intense programs have a whole semester on stress management,
Yeah, it's super
how
important.
to get through those next 4 years.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I
it's
mean, and think about it. If you have adults that are struggling with stress management, imagine if
Mhm.
we had gotten those kind of tools and practiced them when we were younger. I mean,
Right.
how many times do we remember something that we learned in high school that we haven't used in 20, 30 years, but since we learned it at that age, it's there for life.
It's
And
there.
imagine if it was something, legitimately useful like stress management tips.
Yeah. If I had learned how to meditate in high school, if I had learned proper nutrition, what I'm putting in my body, if I had learned the importance of sleep hygiene, if I had
Mhm.
learned cognitive therapy techniques, if I had learned all these things prior to school, and that was just a part of, let's say, my being on this planet now, I would have addressed a lot of my stressors earlier in life differently and probably more successfully. So I want to help these kids not develop severe depression, anxiety, panic attacks, the things that I see them coming in with, eating disorders. They're good kids and they're just trying to be good. They're just trying to be good and they're getting themselves into all sorts of mental health trouble because the stress
Yeah.
is so intense.
It's the world we live in, but at the same time, that's why we do what we do.
That's what we do, what we do. It takes a village.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so where can people find you? I will have links to everything down here below.
Yeah, so my
What's the
practice
best place
is
to reach
in
out to you?
San Clemente, California, and I do also a telehealth practice. So I'm able to see people remotely by video. So residents of California, due to telehealth laws, you have to be standing on California soil to see me through telehealth. But I also have my brain health coaching certification, and with that, I can see people anywhere. You just enter through a different portal and see me as a brain health coach. So my website is down below, and you can contact me through my website.
Awesome. Well, I think we will land the plane here. And thank you so much, Mary. Had a great time chatting, and
Yeah,
I
awesome.
look forward to the next time.
I look forward to the next time. Thanks for having me, Dr. K.
Take care.
Bye.